All right, how y'all doing today? This your boy David E, aka David Espadron, and I want to welcome y'all to It's Up From Here. And I got one of my good friends here with me today. His name is Christopher Hagen, and today we're going to talk about his resort that he owns and event rental space that he owns out in Puerto Rico, and how real estate goes out in Puerto Rico as well. So Chris, tell us about your resort in Puerto Rico, and also tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks, man. Really appreciate being here. So back in 2005, I had just got back from Afghanistan. I used to be in the Marines, and one of the things when I was over there for about 7 to 9 months, and one of the things that I was thinking about when I was over there was really settling down, kind of trying to establish myself when I got back. A lot of times when people are in these sort of like difficult situations for a long period of time, could be, deployed or prison or something, they really want to get established when they get back, to have some sense of stability. So my mother's Puerto Rican, and at the time I was stationed in Hawaii, I considered buying something over there. But really what I noticed was that real estate market was totally saturated. Prices were crazy. And then just on a whim, we decided to look up with my mom and I, we tried to look at some places in Puerto Rico. And right away I saw there was a really good value for money. And one of the last places that we looked at, I saw lots of places, but none really kind of spoke to me. But one of the last places that I looked at was actually, and I'm not even making this up, it was a junkyard that was along a beach in Puerto Rico. It was next to a little estuary, a little river with its own little lagoon that went out to the river. And the minute I saw this place, even the real estate agent was kind of like, yeah, like this place needs a lot of work. It's kind of a disaster, but I just saw that this place had a lot of potential. So I ended up buying it, and then very, very slowly over a period of like 7 or 8 years of just, a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there, a week's worth of work, a month's worth of work. We finally built it up into what it is today, and now it's a really good location. It's really good space too, 3 acres right on the beach. Enough room for 8 people to stay there at once. And most importantly too, we do a lot of events. We do combined events with stays and events, but we do weddings. We're on track to do probably I think we're up to our 50th wedding right now.
Oh, wow.
We've had birthday parties. I mean, like when I say birthday parties, I'm not like huge, like quinceañeras, family reunions. A lot of anniversaries are celebrated there too, family reunions. So it's been a really interesting journey. It's just everything from buying the place, building it up, getting familiar with this kind of business, and then also, probably the reason why you brought me on here is just doing business in Puerto Rico in this kind of way, and trying to carve out my business there and learning what I have along the way. So,
right. So can you describe to us the unique features and experiences that your resort has to offer for your guests?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically when people think about something in any kind of like tropical environment, they're probably going to think of some resort like Sandals, or going to think of maybe like a cruise type atmosphere where it's very luxury, very high end. And for some people that is the only thing that they want. Now obviously I never had the capital and to really build into that kind of place, and I didn't have the experience, and also too just finding the staff, and because at the same time I was still having my day job, and I still have my day job that I do besides this as well.
Okay.
But what I realized was that something that people were looking for, and we kind of stumbled on this on accident, was that people were really looking for a kind of real, I would call like a natural experience. So when you think of a beach, if you think of a beach, you can either think of something like Club Med, again, Sandals Resort, like pristine, everything's manicured, you ring a bell and some dude shows up with everything you want. But a lot of people, as nice as that is, a lot of people want something different. They want something that's a lot more like an authentic experience. And that's where I tell people that our place it's more like Robinson Crusoe and less like Club Med. So imagine you just came on some like very naturalistic beach that had lots of wildlife, that it's a clean beach and the sand's totally nice, but it's not perfectly curated. So for example, like we have a lot of and I'm saying this in a cute way, some people might get freaked out, but there's sometimes there's crabs running around. Our neighbors are fishermen, and they're very traditional Puerto Rican fishermen, so they'll go out with a boat and a net, and just cast the net and just kind of pull their fish in for the day, and then literally put a sign in front of their door and sell it. And those are the people you'll see kind of walking around on the beach. We have a neighbor that raises horses, for example, so him and his son will be just riding their horse bareback on the beach, and then you'll just see them riding in the sunset. So in a sense, like when you come to this place, you're very much, you feel and you know that you're in Puerto Rico. You're not in just some scenic beach which you can transplant to anywhere in the Caribbean or anywhere in Europe for that matter, in the Mediterranean. You know that you're in Puerto Rico. We've also done a very good job of curating the property to grow trees, grow very local natural trees, lots of fruit trees too. So when you're there, we deliberately planted as many coconut trees as possible, mango trees. I mean, I go down for minutes and minutes on how many different types of fruit trees we have. But the point is, when you get there, you can go and like pick your own fruit, for example. You're going to have fresh coconuts. But what you're not going to have is something that's highly curated. And that, just for some people, when they show up, it's almost like a little bit of a shock to them, because you're really in the middle of a very sort of natural environment, and a lot of people aren't used to that. Again, they want to go to some place where it's an established resort, and there's lots of staff, and then there's everything's kind of like very, very refined. And with our place, I almost call it like a cottage on the beach. You're very much immersed right there. Okay. And so far, that's been something that our guests, my sense is that when they show up, they're sort of a little bit taken back, but we have so many repeat customers. We've had so many families that like book out years ahead of time to come back. We've had people that got married there. They have their reunion there the next year, or their anniversary, I should say, the next year. We just had a couple who got married, and their son proposed at our place, and their son proposed to his fiance at the beach house. Wow, that's pretty cool. I think that we know for a fact that to some people we're doing a really good job of having a very, very memorable place. Sorry, I'm kind of talking too much if you got another phone.
Oh no, you good, man.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most popular activities and attractions people can go to that's in the area of your resort?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So another interesting thing too is, so when you think of Puerto Rico, typically there's, I'd say maybe three places they'll go to. Is San Juan, which is kind of that urban area, lots of partying there, resort experience, or they'll go to Rincon, which is now this kind of like beacher, very, very rich beach, surfing beach sort of area. And then our area, Mayagüez, is not really well known. So the water is perfectly clean water, but it's not like the crystal clear blue water. So when people come there, they're sort of like a little bit taken back by what they're at. I would say the majority, to answer your question, the majority of people literally don't leave the house. They come there and they just feel so relaxed by the experience they're immersed in that they feel like they never have to leave. But if they do, what I like to do to complement the kind of experience they're already getting, what I usually do is I won't recommend the fancy, like super nice kind of picture Instagram worthy beaches that they can drive to that are maybe say 20 minutes to a half hour away. What I like to do is I like to send them up in the mountains, and then in the mountains they can go to different coffee plantations, different waterfalls, different natural parks. And that's, again, something that they wouldn't really think about that, but they end up having a very worthwhile time. But of course, depending on how long they are there too, there's amazing beaches that are, not even like 20 minutes away that are just like crystal clear white sand, if they want to get that kind of thing. But I also try to send them up into the city where there's a college town, one of the best colleges in Latin America is just a few minutes up the road too. So there's a lot of historic, we call them pueblos or plazas, where the central square in the town where there's the church and the town hall, and usually surrounded by shops, and you can get great food. So whenever I do have someone coming, I really go out of my way to recommend something local, something authentic. There's even a beach bar down the road. It'll never be in any tour book, for example, but they have great bands there. They got great food, fresh fish that they catch every day, and just, again, between that, coming to the house, a lot of people, I'd say decently over half, never end up leaving.
It's pretty cool, man. So how do you manage and promote the events at your event hall? And also, any memorable moments that you might have that you would definitely like to share
Yeah, no, there's a lot. It really is a labor of love. So for the promotional aspect of it, we're kind of lucky in that a lot of it's just word of mouth, and we get a lot of local interest. And these are people who might just literally drive by the house, see the view. A lot of times I've been there working on the property and I forget to shut the gate, and someone drives in and they're like, listen, I've been looking for a place to get married and this is it. And we just have a sign up. So that's not to say that's all we do, for sure. But right now, I mean, it's kind of a good problem to have, but like, we don't want to advertise too much because we're so booked out, for example. But that, if there's ever a spare weekend, I can literally just put up an ad on Instagram and promote it for like $10, for example. And immediately I'll get inundated with replies of people who want to come stay or use it for this event or that event or whatever. So,
Wow.
but one of the problems that we have, I mean, it's a very good problem. I shouldn't say it's a problem. One of the things we try to emphasize, though, is that every event, every wedding, every kind of anniversary that goes there, we want to make sure they get the best experience possible. So, and that was one of the big shifts that we did, transitioning from short-term rentals into like this event location, was that we need to get some extra staff, again, as local as possible, and really put in a lot of front work so that if you get married there, if you have your family reunion, the place is as well done as possible, and it's going to be very, very memorable. And that's been good. So I think every event that I've been there for, every wedding that's taken place, has always been very, very special to me. And anytime I get to meet a guest that's there, I always try to, whenever I'm there, I try to do the check-in myself. I try to check them out myself. I try to show them around if they're trying to looking at a place for getting married, excuse me. And I always say, and I want to make sure, like, listen, this is not some like fancy event hall. This is, you got to know and understand that this place has a lot of drawbacks to it, because I don't want anybody staying there under like any kind of false impression, and I want them to really know what they're getting, but also be happy about it and be sure that this is what they want.
Right.
So in that sense, yeah, I mean, I wish I had some like particular story that resonates. I would say there was a couple that used to stay with us, and the husband had some serious health issues, that every year you could see he was kind of declining in health. However, when he would show up, that is. But when he was there, you could see him actually getting a lot healthier, and that was just due to the air, the ambiance, just the sheer nature of the place. I was going to say, I probably should have mentioned earlier, like, we don't even have air conditioning, and that's a very deliberate decision that we made not to do that. And that was because, I know it sounds crazy because it's on an island, tropical island, and yeah, it can get a little bit warm, but between like the ocean breeze and the way we have the house set up, where basically it's designed in such a way there's constant airflow, we didn't want to interrupt that, I would say, like authentic kind of like historical Puerto Rican feeling of really being in a proper cottage house on the beach.
So it isn't like overly hot there. It's just
No. I mean, it's the kind of thing where after like one day you get acclimatized to it, and then honestly you end up, it sounds a bit weird, but a lot of people don't like the AC at that point afterwards because they've gotten used to just kind of the natural environments and just, that fresh air all the time. So again, this is an older gentleman, so if anybody's going to be intolerant to heat, it's him. But just that being there when he would stay with us, you could see he was like actually healing up a lot, which was really nice. So that was a kind of a legacy family that's been with us for many, many, many years. But like I said, I mean, what I mentioned earlier, like when you have those families, they come for a special day and they come back to have their anniversary party at the same place they got married, or when you have the children of somebody who got married there proposing and also wanting to have their wedding there. I think that speaks a lot to the special nature of the place.
So what challenges have you faced being an owner of a resort in Puerto Rico, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, very, very good question. So the key thing about Puerto Rico is that you have to be very, very resourceful. Puerto Rico, just by its cultural nature, because of its history, is not as, I would say, it is commercially developed. I don't want to give any kind of false impression or any kind of say a derogatory. Like, I love Puerto Rico. I think it's an amazing island. But if you come from the States, America tends to have a lot more well-established like chain stores. So if you want something, you go to Home Depot. If you want this, you go to this place, some sort of name brand place. And it's the market's very much saturated. In Puerto Rico, depending on what field you're looking at, but particularly for like home improvement, for labor, it's a lot more individualistic, meaning you need to like know where to go. And the only way you will know where to go is by getting to know people who know these places, who will tell you. And then all of a sudden you'll find some place to buy something, to get somebody to fix something that's it was like maybe under your nose the whole time, but you would have never known otherwise. So understanding the lay of the land and finding out things through word of mouth is much more important, in my experience at least, in Puerto Rico than it is in the States. And for many people that can be very, very challenging, but to me it's rewarding, because then when you find those people, you find those places, you're dealing with a real individual, and you've made a very good connection with them personally.
So could you highlight some advantages of owning property in Puerto Rico, in the sense it's a destination where people love to go on vacation?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned before, it's got a very different feel to it. If you want that, if you have like a really authentic place in a local community, not a neighborhood that's designed for expats, not kind of a turnkey resort area, but a place that's like, in my case, in a fishing village or in some small town somewhere, that the advantage is already there, in the sense that you are dealing with a very unique place. You are dealing with real people who come from that community and have for generations. And if you can get on side with them, if you can build up trust with this community, my experience has been that you really end up having like a family that helps take care of your place. And one of the ways that I've been able to do that is, first off, I go out of my way to make sure the people working for me are from the area. That as much as possible, they're even from that town, maybe even my neighbors, for example. As much as possible, I integrate them in that. Another thing that I'll do is, if someone from the neighborhood wants to rent the place, which is very, very frequent, I will give them like some ridiculous discount, almost to the point where I'm not making money. And I do that deliberately so they don't feel like they're priced out of a place that is literally in their own town.
Right.
And they can feel very happy about it. They know that I'm operating in good faith. And then should some problem happen, there's all kinds of problems that can happen in a tropical. Hurricanes, for example, is one big one. That they're looking out for you. And that's something that is a huge advantage compared to some other places where you might want to do business where, say, it's just all about money, it's all about transactional stuff. I find that just the relationship aspect and the awareness, the cultural awareness that you need to develop can be a huge advantage later on compared to some other places.
So have you considered expanding your real estate in Puerto Rico and kind of buying more, and what are the key factors of doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of times I've looked at places to expand, in particular in that same area, and there is nothing stopping me doing it now except for just kind of looking for slightly better opportunities. But it is something I'm interested in, and one of the reasons why is because, like I said, we are booked out oftentimes like a year plus in advance, and we frequently have to turn people away. And so there's a market there, which is very, very surprising, but there's a market, and a few other places that are competitors of mine, they're getting bought out by some very rich Americans, and they're no longer being used as some of these event spaces. They're being turned into private homes for like multi-millionaires. So, in fact, there was a big one that just happened up in Rincon. So, I think the opportunities for people to have an affordable but wonderful place to have any kind of event are dwindling, and I think that there is a market for that. So, I'm absolutely keeping my eyes open.
So how do you maintain and manage your properties from a distance? And also, what tools or strategies you found effective?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the main things that I do is I always try to keep people in the village on side. Anytime I'm there, there's a number of productive things that I could be doing, but one of the first things that I do is I go and I reconnect with the neighbors, check on how they're doing. Some of these people are family friends of ours that we've just developed over the years. And early on, when we were hiring somebody, we had one worker, and he was very, very good in his own way. He wasn't from there though, and sometimes that would create some conflict of just between him and some of the local, I don't want to call them locals, but some of the neighbors on various issues. Sometimes even regarding they've got their horses and they want to have their horses grazing on property. Should they graze it on my land because I've got a bunch of grass and it's good for them, and but they leave a mess, and it's just something that just wasn't really getting resolved. But he ended up moving away, and then I got a new manager of the property who was from the area, and very quickly I could see that, and nobody's perfect, for all of his faults, and I'm not saying that he has faults or many faults, but the main thing that I noticed was that he was really good with the neighbors. He was a man of respect, that the people in the area, he had a lot of, I would say, gravitas, so to speak. And I was like, this is definitely the kind of guy I want working on my property. And very quickly, any issues we had with the neighbors sort of just magically went away. It was managed properly. But one of the nice things too about him as well is that he's just he's a very friendly guy. He's a very charming guy too. So what that means is that every guest, every venue, every rental that we do there, be it for an event or for a short-term stay, he does and it's very authentic too. He's not doing it just to placate people. He makes really good friends with the people that stay there, and that's just been awesome because it just establishes good faith. And if there's a problem, and there's always going to be problems, there's always going to be misconceptions, there's always going to be some weird issue, something doesn't work properly or whatever. People just understand that, hey, we're doing our best, and we mean that, and we're not here to try to take advantage of you. We want you to have a good stay, and if there's a problem, please trust us that we're fixing it. So that just helps out with the reviews, that helps out with recommendations, and even this guy, Papo, he's kind of become part of many people's family as a result, because they just really appreciate what the kind of effort that he puts into making sure that they're happy. So just finding the right people has been amazing. Been just so helpful for me.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, man. So what advice would you offer to someone who's interested in venturing into the hospitality business, and particularly when managing properties from being remotely?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Airbnb craze, a lot of people have some mixed reviews on it, and when I first started out with that, I think probably one of 3 Airbnb people on the west side of the island. So I had a complete monopoly. And back then, we're talking 2012 or whatever, Airbnb was very different. The company was run differently, and it really was, hey, this is my home, I'm opening it up to you, and I'm going to make sure you have a very good sort of meaningful experience. You can kind of get that on Airbnb anymore, but now it's very different. There's some corporations that own dozens or even hundreds of these short-term rental stays. They have entire teams dedicated to marketing, teams dedicating to making sure the pictures are good, and that that the ranking when you search for it is going to be up at the top. So the advice that I would give is don't be afraid to think wildly outside the box to get a niche for yourself. Don't be afraid to say, hey, well, what if I provide something that's completely different and maybe not even what they want, but I'm going to tell them what they'll like, or I'm going to show them what they like. And I think in my case, that's been very successful, where again, I don't lots of people come to ask, well, you should get this. If you get this, you can double your revenue or your bookings, or, the air conditioning is always a big one. And I was like, no, we're not going to. That's not the experience we want for our guests, which is a little bit reverse of what you think of, no, you give them what they want. But I go the other way, I give them what I want, what I think I'd like. And so far that's worked out pretty well.
That's a beautiful thing, Chris. Definitely appreciate you for kind of coming in.
Absolutely,
giving
absolutely.
us an insight on how hospitality works, especially in Puerto Rico, you know, because you're in a whole different